guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to another movie review, aka After I Saw. This time is going to be on The Marvels. This is the sequel to Captain Marvel, and we follow Kamala Khan as she's a massive Marvel fan, and she manages to meet up with Captain Marvel. And from there, we got ourselves a new adventure, which really doesn't need to happen because Endgame was, well, I don't even think it really was supposed to be the end. I think they were still planning on, well, it doesn't matter. We got more than 10 movies later, and we're still doing more in the MCU, pretty much. And there's another bad guy, so of course, Captain Marvel, and I forgot what the other woman's name was. It's been so long since I watched the first Captain Marvel, and I don't know. I really, most of the Marvel movies that I've been seeing, I've only watched once. Like, I never really rewatched them for marathons or anything like that. I haven't even, like, marathon the Marvel films. Like, because the MCU, I'm not really big into as much as I used to be. Now, don't get me wrong. I still love a lot of what the MCU had to offer. Like the first Iron Man, the last two Captain America movies, Endgame, of course, and the first Avengers and Infinity War, Guardians of the Galaxy. I still generally do enjoy a lot of the films in the MCU. In fact, my least favorite is still Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania, and I gave that a 3 out of 5. But generally, when it comes to the MCU nowadays, I just feel like they're kind of running out of ideas at this point. Like, the Marvels, I didn't necessarily thought was bad. I just thought it was, well, okay, Marvel has really been starting to show off their lack of, I would say originality, but pretty much I don't feel like these films tend to try to be original. I would just say they're kind of like lacking in what made them, so big and what got people hooked onto them to begin with. But I can't necessarily say this was bad. Yeah, Brie Larson is one of the biggest reasons that people tend to like Captain Marvel, just due to the fact that she said a lot of things that got people upset. And the fact that she was still recasted anyway, she's always, in my opinion, she's all right in these movies, okay? She's not like groundbreaking in any way possible. I just feel like she's fine. In terms of everybody else, the girl that played Kamala Khan, I thought was pretty cool. Like, I like how her character plays out. Like, she's a big fan of Marvel and all that, and when she meets up with Captain Marvel, she gets all jittery, and she tends to become a hero herself. I honestly like her perspective in this more than in the Marvel's Avengers, the game. Now, keep in mind, I haven't seen any of the Disney Plus shows. Like, I haven't seen Loki or Secret Invasion or WandaVision, so I may be missing out on some things, but it's just that there is just so much MCU TV shows that tie into this entire thing that I am just too busy with other things in order to keep up with. That's why I always tend to watch the movies, even though the Disney Plus shows definitely have major parts to the movies, pretty much. So yeah, I'm probably gonna be missing some key elements. It's just I just watch these movies as movies and just don't really try to think about them being part of a franchise. But of course, MCU is the biggest franchise to date. Whether or not this film is going to do a whole lot, it's still going to continue on. But really, though, the problem with this whole thing is that it just doesn't really feel like there's a whole lot going. I just feel like they're kind of running out of ideas at this point in terms of its storyline because it honestly tends to be very weak because it's just them fighting off another bad guy, pretty much. And yes, there is humor in the movie, and while it does have its moments, I feel like some of the humor I feel like tends to ruin most of the moments throughout the franchise now. I mean, sure, that's where it got its charm, but nowadays I just feel like it just doesn't know whether to be humorous or more emotional because that was one of the biggest problems that most people had with Thor Love and Thunder. It relied too heavily on humor when it should have focused more on emotion because it just didn't know what it wanted it to be more of. But this one, it definitely wants to feel more humorous, and while there is emotion, there isn't like a single moment that definitely had me tearing up or anything like that. But in terms of, the movie, it's like the way the action plays out, It's the shortest of the MCU, and the movie is very well paced. It did manage to fly by pretty quick, so the movie wasn't boring. I mean, I thought the way it opened up was definitely a lot better than how Captain Marvel opened up. It's just that, when it comes to the CG, yeah, it's definitely not that great, and some of the green screen can be noticeable, but it's at this point where I just don't even care anymore. I feel like we're now in the era where the CGI is just getting worse. Also, the movie did suffer through a lot of reshoots, but there have been critics that have been saying like this movie was so groundbreaking, it's a step up to the MCU. I personally didn't really feel that way at all. Like I mentioned before, I didn't hate this movie. I just felt like the MCU is definitely starting to show its age because the movie it just didn't really feel like it had a whole lot to offer in terms of new things to the franchise. I mean, it does have a mid-credit scene that most people might find, like exciting. I thought it was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to spoil anything for you here, but yeah, I'm going to be honest. I mostly came for this movie just because Goose would be back, Goose the cat, and there would be a bunch of other cats, but the bunch of other cats they don't really show up till like close to the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, but yeah. I know I've been mostly negative about the film, but I didn't hate the film. It's well paced enough. The cast does a reasonable enough job. I mean, Samuel Jackson, in my opinion, will always be great as Nick Fury. It's just the storyline. It's kind of gotten out of hand. Like it's pretty much like save the world and stop the bad guy, but characters are going through other stuff, through some past stuff, and of course it does have mentions of the first film, but of course, yeah. But I don't know. Maybe it's just due to the fact that I don't really get as excited for these films as much as I used to. I mean, they got me super hyped at first, with films like Avengers and all that, but now it's just kind of like, okay, we're still doing this, but I guess I have to see it anyway because it's a Marvel film. But yeah, I didn't really find that much groundbreaking stuff to be in this film. I was just all like, okay, it's another film off the list. But hey, I do think it's one of the weakest that the MCU has to offer, but it's a film that I just thought was fine, but I don't really have a reason to rewatch it unless I have to if I wanted to know more about what would happen in the next movie. But bottom line, as a film, it's just fine. I think Ant Man and the Wasp Quantumania is just a little bit worse than this, but still though, this didn't impress me that much. I mean, it has its moments, it has its fair share of charm, but it's one that it's just gonna die out in the dust, pretty much. I mean, there was a lot of MCU films I have enjoyed but haven't rewatched since, so yeah. But all right, but anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Word out.